humbled by the reception that I get as I travel around the world. I think I came up on stage earlier than I was supposed to. But it was fun listening to the introduction while I'm on stage. Hello, BNI Goa. It is fantastic to be here. This is my 5th trip to India. I am excited to be here in Goa. It's my first time in Goa. I love how here in India you do it more than a lot of other countries where it's, good morning BNI and everybody yells good morning BNI. We did that in Sri Lanka, and one of the guests came up to me and said, it was like 2 o'clock in the afternoon. One of the guests came up to me and said, did they know it wasn't morning anymore? Like, yeah, they knew. It's an inside joke. Listen, it's great to be here. I am really pleased to do a presentation that's probably one of my favorite talks. It's called Networking for Success. And so I'm going to share with you a number of things that I think will enable you to make your networking efforts even more successful. If you're a BNI member, take notes, because there's a lot in here that will benefit you in BNI. If you're a guest, I promise you, this is not just a BNI presentation. This is a presentation on how you can build your business through referrals. Let's start with something I call the networking disconnect. A number of years ago, went to London, and I was speaking to an audience of about 900 people. And I watched all day. It was an all-day event. I was the last speaker. And I watched as people were networking with one another. And mostly it was face-to-face cold calling. Mostly it was, hi, my name is so-and-so, let's do business. And they were trying to go right into doing business. And so when I had a chance to stand on stage, I did something I've never done before. You don't have to raise your hand. This is what I did in London. I asked the audience, I said, how many of you are here today hoping to, just possibly sell something? 900 people raised their hands. I said, great. Second question. How many of you are here today hoping to, maybe just possibly buy something? Nobody raised their hands. Not one single person. This is what I call the networking disconnect. People show up at networking events wanting to sell, but nobody is there to buy. So why go to a networking event if you're not there to sell? Well, I'm going to talk to you about why you should go to networking events and why you want to go to networking events with the right mindset and the right skill set. And that's what I'm going to talk about next, is networking with the right mindset and networking with the right skill set. First, we're going to talk about mindset. And if you don't have the right mindset when you go into a networking opportunity, the skill set is not going to help you very much. You have to start with the right mindset. That mindset begins with a concept called EQ, or emotional quotient, emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is your ability to interact effectively with other people. It's about building relationships with people. EQ is very important. Emotional intelligence is very important. If you want to be an effective networker, it's all about building relationships with other people. One of the things that really frustrates me is that we don't teach this in colleges and universities anywhere in the world. We don't teach networking, referral marketing, word-of-mouth marketing. We don't teach social capital, emotional intelligence. We don't teach it. Yet, when I did a study that was part of a book called about gender, business and networking and gender, when I did this book, I surveyed 12,000 people. 12,000 people, not just BNI members. It was open to the public. And I found that 91.4% of the respondents said networking has played a role in my success. 91%. When have you ever seen any group of people ever agree to anything? You don't. You can't get 91% of any group of people to agree to something. Yet 91% of the people in this survey, and they weren't just BNI members, said that networking's played a role in their success. Yet, we don't teach this in colleges and universities anywhere in the world. One of the reasons for it, and I talked to a dean of a school a number of years ago, he said, look, networking is a soft science. We don't teach a soft science. Well, yes, they do. I've been a professor. They do teach soft science in colleges and universities. It's called leadership. Leadership is a soft science. I studied under Warren Bennis at the University of Southern California. He'd be the first person to tell you that leadership is a soft science. I know a number of experts on leadership, including John Maxwell. And John would tell you leadership is a soft science. So we do teach soft science. We just don't teach networking. And one of the reasons for it, I think, is that we don't teach sales in colleges and universities. And why is it that we don't teach sales? Because most professors who are full-time as a professor haven't been in business to sell. They haven't been out there selling. And so they haven't been out there networking, and they don't know how to do it, and they don't understand it. And so we don't teach it in colleges and universities. And that's why it's really important in BNI to teach it. And so I'm going to start with some of the mindset things for you to consider. The first is something I call the butterfly effect of networking. Now, the butterfly effect of networking is based on chaos theory, which is a division of mathematics. And it says, this is a good photo op, okay, you ready? It says the flapping of the wings of a butterfly. He's not paying attention. This is a good photo op. You want to take this. The flapping of the wings of a butterfly changes some minute thing in the environment, which changes something else, which changes something else, which changes something else, which changes something else, which changes the weather. That's the concept of the butterfly effect. Now, I started thinking about this in terms of networking when I was on this island, Necker Island. It's about 16 years ago, the first time I was on Necker Island. And I was on Necker Island in the Great Room. This is the Great Room in Necker Island. Now, back 16 years ago, this was the only place that they had internet. Now, internet's all over the island. But 16 years ago, it was only there. And I had an article that was due for Entrepreneur.com on that day. And I had to finish the article. And I don't know if any of you are writers, but sometimes you just get stuck. You just don't know what you're going to write about. And look at that view. It was almost a 360-degree view of the Caribbean. It was beautiful, and I had to sit there and write an article. And I had no idea what I was going to write. And while I'm sitting there at my laptop, up walks Sir Richard Branson of Virgin Atlantic, Virgin Voyages, Virgin Galactic, Virgin everything. He walks up and he says, hey, what are you doing? I said, I have to write an article. It's due in a few hours. I've got a deadline. It's got to be done today. He said, oh, man, I understand deadlines. He said, look, we're outside. We're out by the pool in the ocean. We're having fun. We're playing games. If you get a chance, come on down and join us. And if I don't see you down at the ocean, then sit next to me at lunch and tell me more about this networking thing that you've got going. I said, okay, walked away. And I sat there and I thought, dang, how did I get here? How did I get on Necker Island and a billionaire walks up and says, hey, what are you doing? You want to go out and play? Sit next to me in the lunchroom and let's talk. I mean, how did I get here in this moment? And that became my article for the day. What I did was I reverse engineered how I got on Necker Island, starting with one relationship with a woman who I had met 2.5 years earlier. She was a life coach, a solopreneur life coach. And she reached out to me and she asked me for a favor, which I said yes to. And as a result of that, she introduced me to someone else, who then introduced me to someone else, who then introduced me to someone else, who then introduced me to someone else, who introduced me to Jack Canfield. I'll come back to that. Who introduced me to someone else, who introduced me to someone who asked me if I would like to go to Necker Island and spend a week on the island in a seminar where Branson was going to be. And I said yes. One of those people that I met was Jack Canfield. Jack wrote that book called Chicken Soup for the Soul. And when I met Jack, built a little bit of a relationship with him, he referred me to the Transformational Leadership Council, which is an organization that he started. He invited me to join. It was somebody in the Transformational Leadership Council that then invited me to Necker Island. That whole process took 2.5 years. Now, I tell you this because it started with a solopreneur life coach. Sometimes when we network, we think, I just want to network with millionaires. I want to network with CEOs. I want to network with executives. That's what I want. But I'm here to tell you, you want to network with anyone who's good at what they do. And if they're good at what they do, you don't know who they know. Because they might introduce you to someone. They might network up for you. They might introduce you to someone else, who introduces you to someone else, who introduces you to someone else, who introduces you to someone else. And then you end up on Necker Island meeting Richard Branson. This is part of the butterfly effect of networking. Networking is more about farming than it is about hunting. It's about cultivating relationships with people. This took 2.5 years. Networking, particularly in BNI, is a marathon, not a sprint. Don't burn yourself out. It's about building relationships and trust with people, which takes time. And if you're willing to take the time, magic happens. Magic happens. You heard Mac talk about the fact that in the last 12 months, BNI generated 21.7 billion with a B, 21.7 billion US dollars worth of business for our members. Now, based on United Nations estimates, if BNI were a country and we compared our closed business for members to the GDP of nations, BNI would be the 111th largest nation in the world. There would be more than 100 countries smaller than the thank you for closed business that we did and compared to GDP. That is amazing. We are absolutely impacting communities all over the world. We're impacting communities here in Goa. We're impacting communities all over India and all over the world. We're changing the way the world does business, and part of that is understanding that networking is a marathon. It is not a sprint. As a result of being invited to Necker Island, I've had a chance to go back 4 more times. I've been there 5 times. I've had a chance to talk to Richard on a number of occasions. And the butterfly effect continues in my life. The butterfly effect continues in my life. I had a chance to see the rollout of the White Knight 2. That's the mothership that's going to take the spaceship into, well, up to close orbit, and then the spaceship will go into orbit. By the way, that's not a press photo. That's me holding the camera up over. You can see the top of the heads of people behind me or in front of me. I've had a chance to see the rollout of the White Knight 2. I've had a chance to see the rollout, this is in the Mojave Desert in California, the rollout of the Spaceship 2. And so the butterfly effect continues to take place in my life. The key is you need to look for those opportunities where you say, this is possibly the butterfly effect. Meeting this person might introduce me to someone else, and might introduce me to someone else. And you got to follow those ripples. And the ripples you want to follow are ripples that involve quality business professionals. Whether they're more successful than you, whether they're peers of yours, or whether they're even less successful than you, you never know who people can introduce you to. So make sure to build relationships with people at all levels of organizations. Okay, another key factor in mindset is understanding that diversity is important. And when I talk about diversity, I may be talking about cultural diversity, I may be talking about gender or age diversity. The more diverse your network, the more powerful it's going to be. This is really an important fact. Networks are by nature clumpy, they're cluster-like. We tend to hang out with people that are a lot like us. They have the same background, maybe the same educational background, same socioeconomic background. We don't hang out with people that are different than us as a rule. And the truth is, the more diverse your network, the more likely you are to find people who are connectors to other groups of people. So you have 3 clusters of people here. If you know someone who then is a connector to another cluster, then you have built a powerful personal network based on the diversity that you've created within your network. And what I have seen is a lot of people around the world just tend to hang out with people that are like themselves. So not only do you want to understand the butterfly effect, you want to understand the power of diversity because it connects you with people that you wouldn't otherwise think of. I always am looking to connect with young people, millennials, Gen Z, people that bring a whole different view of the world than me. It's interesting for me to spend time in a business environment like this and then spend time at a university with professors. Trust me, it's a lot different. The conversations are a lot different. I like the conversations here better, but don't tell them that. So it's very important to understand that diversity is important and that the more diverse your network is, the more powerful it's going to be. 2 more things in mindset, and then we're going to go to skill set. 2 more things. VCP. Now, most of you have heard me talk about this, so I'll be brief. If you're new to BNI, you haven't heard me talk about this. If you've been around for a while, you've heard me talk about it, but I really want you to understand it. This is the foundation of everything I teach. If you don't understand and practice this, nothing you do is going to work. I talked about going to London and asking people how many wanted to sell something, how many wanted to buy something. And I had somebody say, well, why go if you're not there to sell something? You go for this. This is why you go. You go to work your way through the VCP process. First, you have to be visible. People have to know who you are and what you do. And then, and only then, can you move to credibility where they know who you are, they know what you do, they know you're good at it. That one, by the way, takes time. That takes time to get to credibility. Then, and only then, can you move to profitability, where people know who you are, they know what you do, they know you're good at it, and they're willing to refer business to you on an ongoing basis. This whole process is a time-consuming process. Most of it is spent in credibility. Now, what tends to happen in a lot of networking environments is people will try to jump over visibility, jump over credibility, and try to get right to profitability and introduce themselves and ask for a referral or ask for business. By the way, that just happened a few days ago where someone who I didn't even know asked me for a referral to Richard Branson. Seriously. After he watched this presentation, he asked for a referral for Richard Branson. I said to him, I'm sorry, what's your name? I didn't even know him, right? No, I'm not going to refer him to Branson. I'm barely at credibility with Branson. He's at invisibility with me. I have no relationship with this individual who wanted the referral. I have a building relationship with Branson. The VCP process is critical. You go to networking meetings to connect with people at different levels. So when you go to a meeting and you meet people that you've never met before, that's where you're trying to get to visibility. You want them to know who you are. That's where you kind of exchange business cards maybe for the very first time. Credibility is where you meet somebody at a networking meeting, you know them. They know you. They know what you do. They may know a little bit about your personal life, whether you're married, whether you have children. They know a little bit about you. You're starting to build credibility. You may meet people where you have a lot of credibility with, maybe where you've done business with them and there's a ton of credibility. You see, that's a different discussion. It's a different discussion with the people that you have credibility with than people that you only have visibility with. Completely different discussion. Now, profitability. These are people that you're referring business to. They're referring business to you. That is a completely different discussion than credibility. It's a way better discussion than just visibility. And so you go to networking meetings to work your way through the VCP process. If you don't know them, you want to create visibility. If you know them, you want to enhance, you want to build that credibility. If you've got the credibility, hey, now it's time to maybe get to profitability where you're referring people back and forth. Okay, so this is all the mindset. I'm going to give you one more mindset concept that relates to VCP. And then we're going to go to skill set, okay? The time confidence curve. If you're in BNI, you've probably all seen this. The time confidence curve. Credibility comes into this because the time confidence curve takes place when you have spent enough time with somebody that you reach confidence, the C, where you spend enough time with somebody that they're confident in your ability to provide a quality product or service, then it's possible to get referrals. Now, different professions take a different amount of time. I had somebody reach out to me today, and they were complaining that they've been doing all the right things in BNI, but they haven't gotten any referrals. But they were in a business that involved investments, and that takes the longest time of all. Here's an example. The time confidence curve by profession, if you're a florist, the time confidence curve is pretty quick. If you're a printer, it's a little bit longer. If you're a real estate agent, it's a little bit longer. If you're an investment advisor, it's at the end of the scale. Different professions take a different amount of time to reach credibility and then to reach profitability. So think about that. Think about your profession and where you might fit in the time confidence curve. All right, so this is all mindset concepts that we've talked about. If you understand these concepts, now you can walk into the skill set topics. What most networking experts do is they just talk about skill set. Hey, here are the techniques you need to do so that you too can build your business through networking. Wrong. You have to understand, you have to have the right mindset to apply these skills effectively. So here are some of the things, and obviously this isn't everything. I could spend a couple of days talking about skill set, but here's a handful for you. Skill set, networking face-to-face. I'm not going to talk about online today. I'm talking about networking in person like we are here. Okay. We're going to talk about men and women and how they network. Yes, we are. One of these photographs, I don't know if you can see it over here, but one of these photographs is a straight road. One is a winding path. One represents the way men network. One represents the way women network. I'm going to point to one, and I'm going to want you to yell out whether it's men or women. Are you ready? Okay, here we go. This one. This is so totally men. It is so totally men. We did that survey of 12,000 people, and we found that men tended to be more transactional in the way they networked, and women were more likely to be relational in the way they networked. And in a few minutes, we're going to take a look at the hard data to see which is better, transactional or relational. Transactional being, hey, it's great to see you, let's do business. Relational being, hey, let's get a cup of coffee, let's get to know each other's business a little bit more, you're building a little bit of a relationship. Before we do that, let's have a little fun. I want to make sure everyone can see this. Let's have a little bit of fun. I'm going to show you an interesting PowerPoint slide. Mission, go to the Gap and buy a pair of jeans. The Gap is a clothing store in North America. But go to the store and buy a pair of jeans. Men. Time, 16 minutes, a new record. Purchase jeans, cost $35. It's an old slide, it's probably twice that now. But anyway, boom, 16 minutes, in, out. That's me. If I'm gonna go to a store, I wanna get in, do what I gotta do, get the heck out. Women. I love this, went past the gap. Time, 2 hours and 16 minutes. Purchased jeans, shoes, handbag, perfume, makeup, cost $876 US. I've used this slide for quite a few years, and when I first showed it to my late wife, Elizabeth, when I first showed it to her, you know what her reaction was? Her reaction was, wow, that's all she spent? That's amazing. Like, wow. That's what you got from this slide. Okay. All right, but here's what's interesting. We just had a little fun, but let's look at the data, because the data is very telling. This is the data that we got from that survey of 12,000 people. Average number of hours spent per week by both men and women was roughly 6.5 hours, 6.31 hours a week networking. Now, networking would be going to a BNI meeting in the morning, coming to an event like this, going to a Chamber of Commerce event, going to some trade association, a service club, Rotary, Lions, Kiwanis. These are all opportunities to network, even though they're not networking organizations like the community service organizations, but it's still opportunities to network. Writing thank you cards to people who you've met, doing one-to-ones. These are all the things that go into this 6.5 hours a week. On average, the average was 6.3 hours a week. Men spent a little bit more time. Not a lot, but a little more. They spent 6.44 hours a week. Women spent 6.19 hours a week. Total amount of business generated through networking, through their efforts of networking. Now again, this was BNI members, non-BNI members, it was the public, so I'd like to think that the percentage is going to be higher with BNI members, but this is a mix. BNI, non-BNI. The average percentage of business generated through their networking efforts overall was 46.7%. Men generated 43.96%. Women generated 49.44% of their business through networking. Let's review. Men spent more time networking and generated less business through their networking efforts. Guys, this should tell us something. What we want to do is be more relational in the way we network, because we found that the women tended to be more relational. Now, if you don't believe that, we went through the data and we took gender out of it, and we just looked at transactional versus relational, men and women. And we found that both men and women who were relational in the way they network generated more business. And so the key here is building relationships with people. It's not about the transaction, it's about the relationship. Now, guys, I know you have a hard time with this one, especially open networking. What's that look like? I have men tell me all the time, what's that look like? What's it look like to be relational in open networking? I'm going to give you a real life example that I saw a few years ago. I was standing with a man on my left and a woman on my right. And we're talking. And a second woman comes into the group. And the man is like, hi, nice to meet you, here's my card. The woman says to the second woman who comes in, she says, hi, my name is Janet. How did you hear about tonight's event? And the second woman says, oh, my friend Sally invited me to the event. And the first woman says, Sally, you know Sally? I know Sally too. How do you know Sally? I look over at the guy. He's like this. Kill me now. Who cares about Sally? We're here to do business. They're talking about Sally. This doesn't make any sense to me. Okay. Man, hi. Here's my card. Transactional. Woman, hi. How did you hear about tonight's event? It was relational. I wanted to know a little bit about how that person got here. And look, they got to business. They got to talking about business. But first it was about making the connection. That's what I'm talking about. Ladies, you don't come out completely clean on this, by the way. Women, we found, had a hard time asking for the sale. They'd build the relationship, but their biggest complaint was that they weren't getting sales that they thought they should be getting because they had built a relationship. And when we dug deeper, we found out that they just weren't asking for the sale. Men have no problem asking for the sale. They have a hard time building the relationship. So we both could be a little bit better, but the truth is relationship beats transaction every single time. Okay, that's a skill set. Next. You walk into, I want to show this. This shows the amount of time spent networking and the percentage of business that is generated as a result of networking. So you can see that the more time you spend networking, the larger the percentage of business you're going to generate from networking. What was the average? 6.5 hours a week. That's what the average amount of time that people spent networking. How many of you here tonight would like to be average? No. We don't want to be average. We want to be above average. You want to be above average? You're going to spend more time than 6.5 hours a week. That was the average. Non-BNI, BNI members, that was the average. I recommend at least 8 hours a week should, the minimum amount of time spent networking and all the kinds of activities that I just described to you. Okay, what other skill set things can we say? Yeah, cave dwellers. I think most business people are basically cave dwellers. They get up in the morning and they're in a large cave with a big screen television. They go out to their garage, they get into this little cave with 4 wheels called their car, they drive to this other really big cave with computers called their office. They stay there all day long, and at the end of the day, they get back into their little cave with 4 wheels, they drive back to their large cave with the big screen TV, and they can't figure out why no one is referring them. Networking is a contact sport. You have got to get belly to belly with people and have a conversation with them if you want to build a powerful personal network. Now that so many people work from home, it's even worse than it was when I first started talking about this. You got to get out and connect with people. Even if it's by Zoom, at least connect with people in order to build a powerful personal network. The referrals are not going to fall from the ceiling. They're going to fall from relationships that you have with other people. Okay, you walk into a room and you see a lot of people. What do you do? How do you network? Where do you start? Let me give you some suggestions. Don't start with these. These are closed twos, closed threes. These are 2 people. This is sort of the God view. You're looking down. These are 2 people standing face to face having a conversation with each other. Or 3 people. 4 people would look like a square. They're standing there. It's closed. You can't step into it very easily. So when you walk into a networking group, what you want to do is look for open 2s, open 3s, and open groups. Open 2s, open 3s, and open groups. Groups of people that are standing in an open stance. I did this presentation a few years ago, talked about open 2s, open 3s, open groups. And I'm talking to a BNI member, and we were standing face to face with each other after I did this presentation. And he said, Ivan, you and I were standing in a closed 2. I'm like, right, okay. So I opened it up. Boom. Within seconds, a 3rd person comes in and joins us. And the 2 of us look at each other as a closed 3. So we open it up again. Boom, another person, open it up. Boom, another person, open it up. Boom, another person. Every time we opened it up, somebody else joined the group. It is a way of being inclusive that is very subtle. When you run BNI meetings and you do open networking, in-person open networking, always train your members to stand in open 2s, open 3s, open groups. You can get this graphic out of the book, Networking Like a Pro, 2nd edition. It's in the book. This is really important. It's a very subtle technique, but it really makes it easy for people to just kind of slide in and start having a conversation. So when you see a group of people like this, you know immediately where to start. You start with this, open 2 or the open 3. Of course, you can talk to individuals. Introverts, by the way, are not real likely to walk up to an individual. Introverts, you know what you want to do? You want to walk into a big group. Believe it or not, it's counterintuitive, but a big group that's open, 4, 5, 6, 7 people in an open stance, you want to walk into that. You know why? Because you can slip in unnoticed. right? You could just stand there for a minute or two, and then somebody's going to say, hi, what do you do? How did you hear about tonight's event? Or something where you'll have a chance to start the conversation. So look for open twos, open threes, open groups. In a BNI meeting, train your members to do open stances, no matter how large the group is or how small the group is. Always have open stances. Okay. Next. Oh yeah, I like this one. 24/7/30. People ask me, well, how do you follow up when you meet people? What's the best way to follow up with people? So I'm going to share that with you. By the way, I forgot to mention, I was so excited to be here in Goa. I forgot to mention, I'm going to have Q&A here at the end. So at least 30 minutes of Q&A. Yeah, at least 30 minutes of Q&A. So if you have some questions, jot them down. I think we're going to probably have 1 or 2 microphones here. There'll be a line. Stand in the line, and I'll answer whatever question you have. The only dumb question is the unasked question. Okay, 24/7/30, follow-up system. So when you go to networking events, how do you follow up with the people that you meet there? First, within 24 hours, drop them a note. Either, do a handwritten card. Nobody does that anymore. Do a handwritten card or send them an email. Connect with them in writing by email or handwritten note and mail it to them. You want to reach out to them within 24 hours, and you just want to say, hey, it was really nice to meet you at such and such event, and I hope our paths cross again. Something like that. And don't sell to them. Don't sell to them. Just reach out and say, hey, it was great meeting you. Hope we connect again. Okay? 24 hours. Within 7 days, you want to connect with them on social media. Now, the key here is that you want to go to the social media platform that they like to be at, the one they go to most. I'll tell you how I learned this. I learned this from my children. My eldest daughter is now 36. When she was 17, I would call her, and she wouldn't answer. I remember talking to her one day and saying, hey, that device I gave you? It's a telephone. Your ear goes here, your mouth goes here, you talk. I listen, I talk back, we have a conversation. She's like, whatever, Dad. She was the one, this is not a joke, she actually said this. She gets mad now that I tell this. She actually said when she was 17, she said, Dad, you're not only not with it, you're not even near it. I'm like, okay, you still have to be home at 10 o'clock, I don't care. So if I called her, nothing. If I texted her, she'd respond immediately. I was like, okay. So if I want to communicate regularly, I need to text her. Fair enough. Then came my second daughter, Dorian. I'd call Dorian, nothing. I texted Dorian, nothing. Now, Dorian's 31. She was 17 at the time, so it was a long time ago. So I went to my wife and I said, I've called Dorian, she doesn't respond. I've texted her like I do Ashley, and she doesn't respond. What do I do? So my wife said, well, you have to WhatsApp her. Now remember, this is well over a decade ago, and I said, what's WhatsApp? So I downloaded WhatsApp so I could communicate with my child. And I tested it once. I called her, nothing. I texted her, nothing. I messaged her on WhatsApp, and she's like, yeah, what's up, Dad? What do you want? Okay, responded immediately. Great. Then came my son. Yeah. He's now 29. This was back when he was a teenager as well. I'd call him, nothing. I texted him, nothing. He didn't use WhatsApp, but he was a gamer. He loved games. And he would often go on an online platform. I don't know if you have it here in India. It's called Steam. don't know if you have that here, Steam. It's an online gaming platform. And Steam has an instant messaging feature. So I was like in my early 50s, I got on Steam, I bought a game just so I could instant message my son and have him respond. And I tested that. I called him, nothing, texted him, nothing. Then I instant message him on Steam, and he's like, yeah, what do you want, Dad? On message, what do you want, Dad? So I learned from my kids that if I wanted to communicate with them, I needed to communicate with them on the platform they were active in, not the platform I wanted to communicate with them on. So this is an important lesson on the 7 days. If you want to connect with somebody on social media, you go to the social media platform that they like most, not the one you like most. And you may think, well, you know, I don't like that platform. So what? If you want to communicate with them, then you got to go there. And by the way, when you are talking to them, when you've met them, ask them, what social media platform do you use the most? You know, I'd love to connect maybe on the social media sometime. And so then you go to the social media platform and you comment on the things that they post. You know, make some kind of comment, follow what they're doing, find out what they're interested in. That's really important, particularly for the third step. The third step, 24/7, 30. Within 30 days, you want to reach out to them. Oh, and by the way, I think I can go back. Yeah. Social media. You can instant message them or whatever. Don't sell to them. Don't sell to them. You connect with them on social media, just have a conversation or respond to their social media posts. Okay, 30 days, you reach out to them and say, hey, we met a month ago, we had a conversation about such and such, which is, by the way, a good point. You want to have a little notepad so that when you're meeting people and they walk away, write a couple of notes down about the conversation so that when you connect with them in 30 days, you know a little bit about them. And so you can say, hey, we connected at the BNI event. I'd love to connect again. Maybe we could get together. I'd love to learn more. You know, get together for some tea or have lunch. I'd like to learn more about what you do. And maybe you'd be willing to learn more about what I do. And we just connect and do a little bit of networking. And when you meet with them, don't sell to them. Good photo up, Himmel? Don't sell to them. And you think, I know you're thinking, really? Even after 30 days? Yeah, even after 30 days. Because you're not even at credibility with them. You're not even at credibility. Look, if they have any interest in your product or service, they'll tell you that right then and there. They'll let you know. Even a blind squirrel can find a nut. You'll stumble over business, but networking is not about stumbling over business. Networking is about building relationships where people refer business to you. You want to build a relationship with this person so that they know, like, and trust you enough to refer business to you. Networking is more about farming than it is about hunting. That's what this is. And so within 30 days, sit down, have a conversation with them, see if there's any opportunity to really build a long-term relationship with the individual. Okay. For those of you who wonder what social media platform I'm most active on, it's Facebook. I am on LinkedIn, Twitter. God help me, I even signed up for TikTok, believe it or not. Yeah, I'm on all of those. I don't have a lot up on TikTok, but I do have some things up on TikTok. So that's my public Facebook page. You're welcome to go there. You'll see a lot of posts. You'll see posts probably by tomorrow from this event. Will be up. The social media team that Mina has worked with, Scion, does a great job for me. So you'll see. Yep, absolutely. So that's where you can find me. Okay. Let's review. I've talked about a lot of things today. We talked about mindset. We talked about the 91% of the people really do get something from networking. We talked about the fact that professors don't teach this in colleges and universities. We talked about the VCP process, the butterfly effect. We talked about diversity being important. Then we got into skill set, where we talked about open twos, open threes. We talked about the follow-up system. We talked about cave dwellers. And we've covered a lot of things today. But here's the thing. You got to actually go out and do this stuff. You know, you got to practice it. It really is about practice, practice, practice. Take these things and try them out. See how they work. See how they work for you. Play with it a little bit. Learn how to do it more effectively. And then try it again. You do it over and over and over again. I think one of the most important things in being successful in business is that you got to do 6 things 1,000 times. Not 1,000 things 6 times. I want to repeat that. You want to be successful in business, do 6 things 1,000 times, not 1,000 things 6 times. And by the way, it doesn't have to be 6, it could be 5, it could be 7. It's a handful of things that you do over and over and over again. Look at BNI. BNI, we meet every single week in order to build relationships. It's about timed repetition to build relationships. So you got to practice these things. Practice, practice, practice. And don't worry about making mistakes. You will. It's inevitable. It's okay. We learn from the mistakes that we make in life. And I bet no one in this room has made a bigger mistake than I did. And I happened to do it on live television. And I'm going to share that story with you today. A number of years ago, actually quite a long time ago, my first major book had just come out. And my publicist reached out to me and said, "Hey, Ivan, we have an opportunity for you to do a live interview in Connecticut," which is a state in the United States. In Connecticut. It is the largest cable show in Connecticut. It does better than the big networks. It is huge. I said, "Great, this is super." She said, "Well, there are 2 caveats." I said, "What?" She said, "One is it's live. Live, live. Like whatever you say will go out on the air. There's no tape delay." Now everything's tape delayed, but back then it wasn't, it was live. So she said, "It's live." I said, "Okay." And she said, "There's like millions of viewers." I'm like, "Okay, now I'm a little bit nervous." She said, "Well, okay, and there's something else." I said, "What else?" She says, "You have to do something visual." I said, "Visual? What do I do that's visual?" She said, "I don't know, you're the expert, you come up with something visual." So I was thinking, what do I do that's visual? I mean, run up and down the aisles and pass out business cards? I don't know what to do. So I came up with this really kind of stupid idea of the tools to network. The tools to network. And I had a toolbox. And I opened up the toolbox and I had the tools to network. You know, business cards, a BNI card file, a badge, and all the tools to network. And I knew it was silly. But it's all I had that was visual. But then I came up with an idea. And I asked the BNI director that was driving me what he thought of this idea. And he said, yeah, do that. Here's the idea. Watch closely. I said, when I do the interview, when I get to the end of the interview, I'm going to ask the host to hold up a copy of my book. And when they hold up a copy of my book, I'll take it and I'll say, "Careful, because that's hot." And he said, "Yeah, that's visual, do that." I said, "Okay, that's what I'm going to do." So I get there, and it is a huge TV show. Probably the largest TV show. I've been on the Today Show. This was every bit as big as the Today Show in New York. I've been on the BBC, it's bigger than that, really large. And we're sitting in the green room, all of the people who are guests, and they're going on, and we're watching them live, and it's really interesting. And then somebody walks by dressed as a Native American, and then someone walks by dressed as a police officer, and then someone as a construction worker. And somebody said, "Wow, that looks like the Village People." Now, have you ever heard the song YMCA? Yes? Okay, that's the Village People. The Village People sang YMCA. So somebody said, wow, that looks like the Village People. And we're all like, no, I'm not gonna have the Village People on the show. And so we're watching, and they end a segment, and the announcer gets on and says, ladies and gentlemen, next on the Fairfield County Exchange, the Village People. And Dr. Ivan Misner to talk about networking. I'm like, are you kidding me? I go on after the Village People? I mean, these guys, they're visual. They're going to be out there. Everyone's going to be dancing. They're going to be singing. I got this stupid toolbox and a little fire trick. That's all I've got. I better put, you see, it's called flash paper, and it's like cotton. And the more you put in, the bigger the flame. So I'm thinking, I better put in just a little bit more of that into the device to get a bigger flame. And so I'm watching as the Village People go out there, and they go out, and they're singing, and they have cameras pan to the audience, and everybody's up there dancing. And I'm thinking, oh man, this is going to be bad. I go on next. I'm going to put just a little bit more of that flash paper in the thing. So I watch, and of course, what's the last song they do? So they're doing this whole YMCA, and I'm like, oh, this is going to be so bad. I'm going to put just a little bit more of that stuff in here. I'm going to go a little bigger. And so they're doing YMCA. Producer comes in and says, Misner, who's Misner? I'm like, that's me. He said, okay, look, the Village People are running late. So we're going to have to get you in there really quick. We're going to have to mic you up, and you're going to be on live in just a few minutes, and you're not going to have much of a chance to talk to the hosts. So get ready. I said, okay, hang on just a second. I'll put just a little bit more of that stuff in there. So we go on out. I sit down. There's a man and a woman. A hostess, and it's the woman who's going to be doing most of the interview. So I sit down and I say to her, hey, look, I don't want to surprise her, right? So I say to her, hey, look, when we get to the end of the interview, would you mind holding up a copy of my book? And when you hold up a copy of my book, I'm going to, and I get to that point, and the director comes over and says, no, I do not want her holding up a copy of the book. It's too much of the book. We're going to have a JPEG of it up on the screen. I don't want her to hold it up. And she walks away, and the host could see the blood drain from my face because that was my big end. You know, I had nothing but that, really. And so she says, I'm the host. What do you want to do? Now, while this is going on, they're sticking a microphone up my back, and they're putting the mic on my thing. And so the director had walked away, and she says, I'm the host. What do you want to do? I said, okay, thank you so much. Look, when we get to the end of the interview, if you could just hold up the book, and when you hold up the book, I'm going to, and now the mic is hot, and the director can hear me conspiring with the host to do what she said not to do. So she comes on over and she says, hey, you two, I said no to holding the book up, and you're on live in 3, 2, and she says, don't worry about it, I'll just go with it, whatever it is. I'm like, okay. So we do this whole interview. I pull out the toolbox. It was kind of lame, but it's okay because I had this great ending, right? It's going to be good. We get to the end of the interview. She says, I have here a copy of Dr. Misner's book. The director's in the back just kind of doing this. And I say to the host, I say to her, oh, careful. She says, why is that? And I said, because that's hot. And I go, and the flame went, and she went, ah! And jumped into the lap of her co-host. She is now lying in, this is a good photo op, she is now lying in the lap of her co-host, screaming. The book is on fire. I'm like doing this. I look around. Now this was years ago. This was back in the old cameras, you know, the big cameras. It blinded all 3 cameramen. All 3 cameramen are now walking around like this. None of them are staffing the camera. She's screaming. We're still on live television. She's screaming. And finally, she calms down enough to say, oh, thank God I didn't swear on live television. We're still on live television. Thank God I didn't swear on live television. I look at her co-host. She is lying in his lap. He has said nothing throughout the entire interview. The first words he says is he looks off camera and he says, "Wardrobe, new trousers for her, please." Director says, "Cut, go to commercial, cut, go to commercial." I look at my BNI director and he goes, "Yeah, that was visual." So as you practice these networking techniques, recognize you're going to make mistakes. It's going to be okay. You're not going to light a studio on fire on live television like I did once. In most states in the United States, I'm considered an expert on networking. In Connecticut, I think I'm considered an arsonist. All right, what we're going to do now is open it up for questions. We're going to do about 30 minutes or so in questions. Remember, the only dumb question is the unasked question. We have one microphone here. And we have an MC up here. I can manage the questions. I can manage the questions. Who's got the microphone? Yeah, okay, so it'll be right there. Let's kill that mic because we're going to get feedback, which we just started to get. I'm good up here. I've done this before. Okay, first question. Yes, go ahead.
Good morning, doctor.
Good morning.
My question to you, my name is Vikash Devra. I'm from BNI Titans chapter here and also from the region. My question is, many of the members, when they join, immediately they are excited, they are in the system. But as the time progresses, they feel low.
Yep.
What is the reason for that and how can we improve that?
So it's really important to understand that you have to set expectations for members, for new members in particular. So new members, the first thing they have to do is go to Member Success Program training. You got to make sure they go to members. Here, another photo op. I'm looking at you. He has missed. You have to make sure, here. You have to make sure that they go to Member Success Program training, because then they're going to be a little bit more prepared. You also need to tell the new members, this is a marathon, not a sprint. Don't burn yourself out. Take your time. Build relationships. Show them the time confidence curve. Set expectations. And if you set expectations properly, then they're not going to burn themselves out quickly. I think that's the key to keeping a new member excited over a long period of time instead of flaming out quickly. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Good morning, BNI. My name is Dhanraj Nawapur and I'm representing Victory as a president. I work for hotel, for living room, and I work as a general manager. I have a question for you, Dr. Ivan Misner, and it is like, in today's date, after pandemic especially, we are all supposed to do multitasking.
All supposed to do what?
Multitasking in our jobs.
Who says?
That's the requirement from our owners. So when I sit with my HR, or when the HR sits with me, the question that she or he, I have two of them, they ask me like, can you guide me, how do I convince the, employees how to do multitasking and that you get hired soon?
Okay, so let's talk about the multitasking thing. There's a TV show in the United States, it's called Mythbusters. I really liked it. And one of the things they said on there is, I reject your reality and I substitute my own. I don't think multitasking is generally a good idea. I don't recommend it. I find that when I multitask, I basically do two things poorly instead of one thing well. So I would urge you not to multitask, particularly during an online BNI meeting. If you're multitasking on an online BNI meeting, you are not present. And if you're not present, you're not going to be as effective in hearing the weekly presentations and hearing the feature presentation, which is going to enable you to refer those people more effectively. So I am not a fan of multitasking. I don't think you need to do it to be successful, and I don't recommend it. Thank you. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you.
And we all know good morning BNI, so we're good with that. Go ahead.
Hi, doctor. So my question to you is, a big personality like you, there are a lot of things that you do in a day. So what does it take to be Dr. Ivan Misner? How do you start your day?
Okay, so that's kind of a layered question. A big personality, I love that, that's fun. You may be surprised by my answer. I really consider myself an ordinary guy who has done some extraordinary things. And I believe anyone can be do extraordinary things. I come from very, very humble beginnings. I was given a 50% scholarship to go to a private university, and I had to turn it down because I couldn't afford the other 50%. And my family couldn't afford the other 50%. And so I worked my way through college. I really believe that the secret to success without hard work is still a secret. It doesn't exist. So I appreciate the big personality. You might be surprised to also learn that I am not an extrovert. I am what's called a situational extrovert. That generally I want to be just left alone, recharge my batteries, I'm good. But when I am talking about something that is important to me or that I am knowledgeable about, I come across as an extrovert. But generally speaking, I'm honestly an introvert. You ask, what is my day look like? Well, when I come to places like India, it involves, security teams and lots of crowds and tons of photos. I'm going to stand and take photos with as many people as you would like to photo today. So if you're interested in a photo, I'll stick around until the bitter end and take photos. But at home, it's pretty low key, really. I get up in the morning, I exercise. I have breakfast, and I'm usually in my office. My office is 52 steps away from my house. It's a separate building next to my house. And I get to work by about 9 o'clock. I usually work until 5 or 6. It's pretty boring, although I do a lot of media, and I write, and I do some Zoom presentations. But what I really, really love is this. I love coming to regions and pouring into members about what's worked for me or what hasn't worked. Thanks for the question. I hope that answers it.
Good morning. I've come from Pune all the way to attend this session. Thank you, Doctor, for this energetic session. I'm Anindita Garg. I wanted to ask you a specific question about the BNI Connect that we use. In BNI, we always believe that specific is terrific, but sometimes it is bit difficult for us to find the category that we belong to and where we can actually, talk about ourselves. Sometimes it happens with me. How to search the category that suits me the best and how to go about in BNI, because that is going global right now. Thank you.
Yeah, great question. And I can't give you details, but I can tell you we are working on the search function right now to improve the search function, to enable you to connect with people more effectively, to also enable the public eventually to be able to find certain professions through BNI Connect. I don't know the date of when that's going to be done, but I do know it is being worked on, and it's very important. In the meantime, if you're struggling, I would recommend that you click on the question mark on BNI Connect. That's the support team run by Jeremy Walsh. Okay. Jeremy has like a 99.9% customer satisfaction rate in responses. So I would ask, I'm looking for this profession, can you help me out? And Jeremy or his team will help you. Okay?
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Good morning, Dr. Ivan Misner. My name is Dr. Samir Kunkalikar. I would like to know your journey from a business consultant toward the father of networking, in short.
Yeah, great question. I started BNI when I was 28 years old. I was a management consultant. I had a client that didn't renew their contract. I thought they would, and so I was pretty desperate for business, and I put together a small group of people that I trusted. I hoped that they would trust me. We got together on a weekly basis. We passed each other referrals. My goal was to have one group to build my consulting practice and to help build my friends' businesses. However, within 2 months, somebody came who couldn't join because her classification was represented in the chapter, and she said, this is fantastic. I could get a ton of business out of a group like this. Would you help me open up my own group? And I said, no, this isn't what I do. I'm a business consultant. I don't run a network. And she said, well, this is kind of consulting. You know, you're helping me build my business. So I said, okay, fine, we'll open it. And we opened another chapter, and that chapter had 2 people come who couldn't join because of classification conflict, and both of them said, this is great, I could get a lot of business out of this, would you help me open up my own group? And I said, no, this isn't what I do, I'm a business consultant, and they talked me into it. Within a year, we had 20 chapters.
Wow.
Yeah, and that was without trying. At that point, I wasn't trying. So right around New Year's every year, I spend a few days reflecting. I look at where do I want to be in next year? Where do I want to be in 5 years? Where do I want to be in 10 years? And how was last year compared to my plan? And that year it was like, what the heck happened? This was not part of my plan at all. And that was the point that I realized that this was going to be much bigger than I anticipated. That was what I call my Brody moment. Do you remember the movie Jaws? Okay, in Jaws, at the end of the movie, Sheriff Brody, he's thrown out chum into the water, and the shark comes up for the first time, and he sees it. And he turns around to the captain, and he says, you're going to need a bigger boat. I realized I was going to need a bigger boat. And that's when I started to create the strategy to scale the business, and as Max said, start writing everything down and creating systems. It was the very end of 1985. Thanks for the question. Hi.
Hello, Dr. Misner. Thank you for the wonderful presentation. I had quite a few questions before you started, but some of them did get answered when I was listening to you. So I'm Anshul Yogesh. I've been running my business since last 15 years. But this is the first time I joined BNI on 15th March when suddenly there was a change in the city of my profession. So I am from Bangalore and I moved to Goa. And initially, as you mentioned, the change was very scary. BNI made this whole change very exciting for me. And I joined only in March, so it's just been 3 months. So I'm learning, but a couple of things that come to my mind.
May I ask, what's your question?
So my question is, have you considered having a hybrid model for your weekly presentations? What I mean by hybrid model is that in case you're traveling, okay, on work or whatever, is it possible to join the weekly presentations through Zoom or in an online way, so you do not miss what's happening in the room?
So are you talking about a hybrid meeting at the same time,
yes,
online and in person?
Yes.
There are technical issues in doing that involve computer systems and PowerPoints and big screens and whatnot. It's almost impossible to do that in a lot of locations. So for now, until the technology is more expanded, a hybrid for us is one time in person and the rest of the month online. Will that change? Yeah, probably. And it might change to exactly the way you're talking, but you got to have the technology. Without the technology in place in restaurants, in office buildings, it's impossible to do it effectively. I watched a chapter try to do it. It was a disaster. The person on the laptop couldn't hear what was going on, and the members had a hard time hearing the person on the laptop. So the technology's got to catch up to do that. But yeah, we're open to that when the time comes. Thank you.
Thank you.
By the way, can I just say, I think it's inevitable that we continue to move towards online. I wrote an article in 2018 that said the future of networking, the future of face-to-face is online. And I think we're going to see more and more technology like holographic images, 3D technology, the metaverse. I really believe that someday we're going to have meetings like the Jedi Knights in Star Wars, where there's like 1 or 2 real Jedis and then a holographic Jedi and then a real one and then a holographic one. When we get to that point, by the way, I want to be Obi-Wan Kenobi. Okay? All right, go ahead.
Hello, Dr. Ivan. So I have been fortunate enough, to have witnessed your Ask Ivan a couple of times. I was at Singapore Global Conference, then Mahabalipuram, never mustered enough courage to ask.
And
So
here you
in
are.
my city, I'm feeling a little bit courageous, and I thought I'll ask you 2 questions,
Good.
which were due from the past too. So I know it's proven, undoubtedly, you're the master, the father of modern networking. Dr. Ivan, I want to ask you, which are not the best, but your favorite 3 tips for networking? Not the best, but your favorite.
Well, I think I gave them to you today. The networking for success really includes what I think are Ivan's greatest hits. They're really the key things that make a networking environment effective. So I probably give you 10 or 12 of
So
them.
I was looking for your top 2 favorites.
It's hard to pick your favorite children. The truth is, it depends on the situation. A BNI group that's struggling with feeling welcomed, making visitors feel welcome, needs to understand the Open 2, Open 3. A chapter that's doing a great job of making visitors feel welcome, that's not as big an issue. A chapter that is going right into sales and not building relationships, not doing one-to-ones, they need to understand the VCP process. So it's like, the truth is, it's almost like being a medical doctor. You take a look at the problem and you give the techniques that chapter needs at that moment. And the top 3 may be different from one chapter or another. Okay?
I had another one. Can I?
A quick one, because there's a long line.
Yes, okay. So doctor, I also have this, I have the biggest challenge. I can't ever say no. So, some of the time I regret my yes. So how do we deal with that?
Yeah, how do you say no? So I wrote a book on this. It's called Who's in Your Room? I don't have time to talk about who's in your room, but a section of it is how do you say no without sounding like a jerk? And my favorite technique to say no, and I talk about it in the book, is this. If I said yes to you, I'm afraid I'd let you down. I'll repeat that. If I said yes to you, I'm afraid I'd let you down. What I love about that technique is you don't even use the word no. But you're letting someone know, I can't do that. And then you say, why? I don't have enough bandwidth, it's not my expertise, whatever the reason is. But that's my favorite technique. There's about 6 more techniques in the book. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning,
Next.
doctor. This is Aftab here. We are into the seafood business, and in the entire Goa region, we are the only business with the seafood category. So my question here today is, as a business owner, we all want to scale, and at some point, we do get an option to raise funds. When we raise funds, it also comes with an influence.
Can you give me your question?
Yeah, when we raise funds, it comes with an influence. So what would be the ideal time for a business to raise funds?
When you need them.
But you also don't want your business to be influenced by your investors. So how do you deal with that?
You don't. Your investors will influence your business, no question about it. So if you want to get investors and have the intention that they won't influence your business, you're dreaming. They will absolutely, positively, unequivocally influence your business. Why do you think most founders are kicked out of the company they start? Because they bring in investors, and either they are difficult with the investors, or the investors doing stupid things that the founder doesn't like. One of those 2 things happens about 95% of the time, and then the founder's out. So I would say don't go into an investment situation thinking that they're not going to have influence, because they will. Do you want a technique to use if you do it? If you bring in an investor? So what I'd recommend is that you put everything in 3 buckets. When you're talking to the investor, because they're gonna talk to you, and they may even, depending on how significant a percentage they buy into, they may bring in a new CEO. So with the investment team or the CEO, you put everything into 3 buckets. The first bucket is, I'm not sure what I would do with that. I'm not entirely sure, but this is my advice. And if they don't follow you, let it go. Let it go. Because you weren't sure. So let it go. The second bucket is, I've got experience with this. I really recommend you do this instead of that. And if you do this occasionally, 75 or 80% of the time, they're going to take your advice. And if they don't take your advice, let it go. And the third bucket is, whatever you do, don't do that. Or do that. I've got lots of experience with that. Here's the situation. The thing is, you use that third bucket as often as a solar eclipse. Because if you use it all the time, they're going to just let you go. They'll let the founder go. So you use the third bucket not too often. Use that technique, it'll work. I promise you, I know firsthand.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right, we've got 16 minutes, and I have about a 3-minute closing, so go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, doctor. My name is Ashfaq. I am an 11-year-old member. My question to you is, how do we keep ourselves excited and motivated to keep doing the same business over and over again, and for multiple years?
Well, the truth is, I can't motivate you. Only you can motivate you. I learned that years and years and years ago.
Thank you.
The best I can do is inspire you to motivate yourself. And the best way, the way I have stayed motivated for 38 years is to always try to work in my flame and not in my wax. When you're working in your flame, you're on fire, you're excited, you love what you're doing, you're passionate about it. People can hear it in your voice, they can see it in the way you behave. When you're working in your wax, it takes all your energy away. People can hear that in your voice and they can see that in the way you behave. And so what you want to do as much as possible is try to find ways to work in your flame. Now look, I get it. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do to get to do what you want to do. But always be working towards spending most of your time in your flame. And if you're spending time in your flame, you don't have to worry about being motivated. You'll motivate yourself, which is really the only thing that works, is motivating yourself. I hope that answers the question.
Perfect. Thank you, doctor.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
I'm Advocate Melvin Viegas. I'm a 10-year BNI member. I want to ask you, doctor, how healthy is the slicing of professional categories? Like in some places we have categories, like an electric contractor, it will be made into various. So how healthy is that?
Way more than you probably think. I would listen to a podcast I did called Classification Cowboys. It's a very good podcast that talks about splitting classifications. I would also talk to your BNI director, because I can't give you an answer from the stage as it applies to your profession and other professions. I can tell you a story though. I went to New York, and at a chapter in New York, they had 5 lawyers in one chapter. And I was like, wow, you have 5 lawyers in this chapter? They said, yeah. I said, how's it working? They said, it's working great, because I get to work my specialty. My specialty is this. I work wills and trusts, and he works, divorces, and they work contract law, and everybody has a specialty, and they're work. By the way, that's working in your flame, right? They're working in their flame. And so they're happy to refer the stuff that's their wax, because the other people are referring the stuff that's in their flame. So 5, I was blown away. A couple years later, I was in San Francisco, and there was 3 lawyers in this chapter, and I said, yeah, you have 3 lawyers, that's impressive. I was in New York, they had 5 in their chapter, and they were like, so? Look, well, 5, that's a lot. They said, we have 7. 7. They had 7 lawyers in one chapter. So the question is, how much do you slice it? You slice it to make it effective. So you find people that you can trust and refer your wax to their flame, so they can refer their wax to your flame. Hope that answers your question.
But what if they're stepping on each?
Talk to your BNI director for more information.
Hi, good evening, Dr. Ayman. My name is Jay Goradia. I run an event company called ANS Media. Been a BNI member for 13 years. My question is, you've networked around the world. We just heard you been with, Mr. Richard Branson. And so if you could tell me about one person that you've met across the globe who's really impressed you and why.
It would probably be Branson and Jack Canfield, the two of them. Jack, his ego does not enter the room before he does. He's an amazing guy. And Branson, let me tell you, I hope I don't make speakers freak out, but let me tell you something about Branson. Branson treats millionaires the same way he treats his staff. I don't want to get closer to the mic because it'll go screeching. But yeah, okay, come on over. So when he's talking to people, he has total eye contact. And if you go to my blog and do a search on Branson, you'll find a blog that I did with a photograph of Richard talking to my son. My son, the room was full of millionaires. He's talking to a teenager, and he's talking to him like this, eye to eye. I learned a lot from the way he treats people. He treats people really, really well. I went to one event, and Branson walks into the event, and of course everybody's, oh, Richard, oh, it's Richard, and they're all excited, and he stops, and he sees two catering servers, the maids, and the servers for the catering. He stops, he turns around, and I'm close enough to hear it, and he walks up to him and he says, ladies, thank you so much for the work you're doing tonight. I really appreciate it. This is an important party for Virgin Galactic, and so I appreciate you and I appreciate you being here. And that was it, 10 seconds. I think those women stood taller after that. I think watching him operate at such a high level was motivational for me. Great question, thanks. Next question.
Good evening, Dr. Misner. My name is Sana, and I am the president of the BNI Prudent chapter. I'm really sorry if I may, but we're this number 6 chapter all over India, right well here done. In Goa. So, Doctor, earlier you spoke about how you use the butterfly effect that worked to your advantage. I wanted to know how could we as entrepreneurs use the same butterfly effect and see the same effects that you've seen?
Well, I can't guarantee you'll see the same effects that I see, but you can use the same techniques and have similar effects. The key is building relationships. That first woman, I did a favor for. She asked me for something, I was willing to do it, I did a favor for her.
Right.
She appreciated that. So the company that she was working with, she wasn't working for, but she was like an independent consultant coach with this company. They needed a speaker. So she introduced me to them. I spoke to them. They hired me to speak. I went to speak. I met Jack Canfield. Wow. Jack and I made a good connection. He invited me to the Transformational Leadership Council. I met a couple of people in the Transformational Leadership Council who then, so it was a 2.5-year process of building relationships with people where they knew me, they liked me, they trusted me. And then they were willing to introduce me to somebody else. That's the process. That's the secret. We're all looking for the secret. That's it. The secret is building relationships with people. That's what it is. I have time for maybe 1 or 2 more. Let's do one more question. Yeah.
Hi, Ivan. Hi, Dr. Ivan Misner. My name is Shri. I'm from Goan Stars, BNI Goan Stars. And my question is, I recently attended the INC Chennai. And as you mentioned, in the 7th year of starting BNI, you thought of yourself as a complete failure. So how did you push through those thoughts and how did you avoid the heavy wind which tried to, put off your flame?
Yeah. So what he's referring to was there was a question, I think it was in Chennai, where I think the question was about failure, and I said, hey, look, 7 years into BNI, I thought I was a failure with BNI, and I did. So your question is, how did I push through it? I really believe a couple of things. I think hope is more powerful than fear. Hope plus a plan plus action lead you to success. And so when I was really depressed about the fact that I hadn't achieved as much success as I thought I should have at 35 years old, I threw myself a pity party. I felt depressed. And then at some point, I just said to myself, buck up, buttercup. You got to get past this. And I find that the best way to get past, that fear is, I think, and I did this in a TV show recently, I think it was in Sri Lanka. People either get frozen by fear or focused by fear. I tend to get focused by fear. I may be frozen for a few days, but then I get really focused by fear. So don't let fear freeze you in place for long. Move past it and get focused by fear. Always, probably one of the most important messages of the night, hold the vision, not the obstacles. Always hold the vision that you have, not the obstacles that are in front of you. Do you think there were obstacles 10 years ago? Yeah. Were there obstacles during COVID? Oh, yeah. Are there obstacles today? Yes. Do you think there'll be obstacles tomorrow? Yes. There's always obstacles. Always hold the vision, not the obstacles. Get focused by fear, not frozen by fear. That's what I did when I was 35. That's what I did during COVID. And hopefully you did as well. Thank you very much. All right, we're out of time. I know we have several more questions, but I can't take any more questions. I think it's very important to end on time. Thank you so much. Let me end with a story. As I travel around the world, a lot of people ask me a question like I was asked today. How do you motivate someone? How do I get motivated? So let me tell you a story about a very wealthy father who many years ago, many years ago, threw a coming out party for his 18-year-old daughter. And he invited all the eligible bachelors to this party. And he said, gentlemen, I have filled this pool, my swimming pool, with poisonous snakes and alligators. The first young man to jump in and swim all the way across to the other end of the pool can have his choice of one of three things. He can have $1 million in cash, he can have 10,000 acres of my best land, or he can have the hand of my beautiful daughter in marriage and inherit all of this someday. No more did he finish the word day than he heard this loud splash, and almost instantaneously this kid jumped out of the other end of the pool. I mean, that kid set a land speed record getting across the pool. Well, the father ran on over to him. He said, well, young man, what would you like to have? Would you like to have the $1 million in cash? The young man said, no, sir. He said, would you like to have the 10,000 acres of my best land? The young man said, no, sir. He said, you'd like the hand of my beautiful daughter in marriage and inherit all of this someday. And again, the young man very politely said, no, sir. Well, perplexed, the father said, well, what do you want? To which the young man said, I want to know who the hell pushed me in the pool. The truth is, there is no one to push you in that pool but you. Only you can motivate yourself to do the things necessary to be successful in business and in networking. You know, Ralph Waldo Emerson once said, what lies before us and what lies behind us is nothing compared to what lies within us. What I love about BNI is that it takes the best that lies within us. It takes this philosophy of giver's gain, this idea that if I help you, you'll help me, and we'll all do better as a result of it. And I cannot think of a better way to do business into the next century. I thank you all very much. You're a great group. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ivan Misner. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for the standing ovation. I think it's truly deserved. Thank you once again. We always talk about takeaways. Two takeaways I have personally is the butterfly effect, which Dr. Ivan Misner spoke about. I think after the Q&A, I'm going to be riding my dragon out of here. And as he was talking about his challenges with his kids, remember people, gray hair is hereditary. You get it from your children. Now, may I request Mr. Rajkumar Kamath, Executive Director, Goa Region, to please accompany the dignitaries on stage. We've got chairs being set up for them. May I request Mr. Max Srinivasan, Global Markets President, BNI, Mr. Hemu Suvarna, India National Director, BNI, Meena Srinivasan, Chief Digital Officer BNI and Director of the BNI Foundation, and Mr. Rajkumar Kamath, Executive Director, Goa Region. Ladies and gentlemen, can you please put your hands together for the dignitaries on stage? Let's make them feel welcome. We'll be having one chair vacant there. It's not the open category in the chapter. It's just waiting for Dr. Ivan Misner to come back.
Tell those boys.
Requesting Sedgwick to take over the rest of the proceedings.
Thanks, Keith. Smoothly done. All right, after a long session from Dr. Ivan Misner, I think there's... All right. After a long session with Dr. Ivan Misner, I'm sure there's been a lot of absorbing that you've done. Lots of people have already stepped out. If they're going to come back in, because this is an interesting part coming up. You don't want to miss, you don't want to be missed, called out your name to receive an award and not be here. That would be pretty bad. Anyways, going forward, in the family of precious metals, it is said that platinum is more precious than most. In this case, we're talking about the sponsors again. Platinum simply means they've paid us more money. We need to call out to them again and again to say thank you, because without them, this was not possible. So I'm going to call out our platinum sponsors again once, if you can get that on the slide. Mudit Agrawal of Vastu and Beyond from BNI Madagram. Aditya Desai and Deepak of Rock Valley, Goa from BNI Samudra. Manas Developers. Vishal Parab and Vikas Diora from Love Vishal Real Estate Goa Developers Private Limited from BNI Titans. Villanova Lobo and Badsha Khan of Vibha Homes from BNI Synergy. These are our platinum sponsors. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to bring to your attention one more time. Remember, we are live. This entire session is live courtesy Prime TV and PBN Bharat. They are our gold sponsors as well. They are working with us. They are seated right there. They've got the camera running there. It is live all through. So we're simply honored to have them on board with us, because we're going live only because of them. Going back to another BNI core values, which is appreciation, more rewards, and more rewards simply means more of Valerie. Valerie? She didn't hear her name. Valerie. Over to Valerie.
Wow, that's the most lukewarm welcome I've got. Thank you. Well, we move on to the awards for the last year. That is from April 2023 to March 2023. April 22 to March 23. I stand corrected. But before that, I would like to give an award for a consistent centurion for South Goa. Please put your hands together and welcome Ryan Vaz of Dynamic. Ryan Vaz. Oops, not Ryan Lobo. Okay, that is Ryan Lobo. One Ryan clicking another.